Hey, this is Mark A. Altman.
And this is Darren Doctorman.
And this is Ashley Miller.
And we are the Inglorious
Treksperts.
And put the ship on red alert because this week we've got Jonathan Frakes dropping in to talk all things Star Trek, The Next Generation. Riker, all things Riker. It's beyond belief, you could say.
The name of this episode is Riker, I Don't Even Know Her.
Yeah, it's so great. Jonathan Frakes, has been on the show a couple of times. We just got back from Richmond where we did another fantastic GalaxyCon. What a great time, great show.
Indeed.
Spent some wonderful time with John. In fact, it was 4 days because they 3 days could not accommodate the crowd,
Right.
so they went to 4 days. So we were there for a supersized.
It was
GalaxyCon.
supersized, and so were we by the end of the weekend.
And
That's
then,
right.
yeah, that's true. And
swelling.
it was a challenge. With Jonathan, we always want to. Every time we sit down with him, we want to ask him different questions. So even though we had talked a lot about his directing career in a previous interview, we wanted to revisit that. But I think that this is a very different interview, and we started by talking about Starfleet Academy, which he just directed an episode of, and a lot of great stories. But before we do that, I know what you're wondering out there in listener land. How
was
were
the
the
food?
meals? How was the food? And this will not disappoint because we had a wild culinary adventure in Richmond, didn't we, Darren?
I don't know if it was wild. It was fun, and we went to some good places.
It was wild. It was wild.
Some cappers to previous visits, which was good.
It was like Best of Both Worlds Part 2. It was very interesting because we the first night
We have engaged the food.
we went back to the main deflector dish. No, we went back to Havana 59, which is interesting because 2 years ago, you may remember, we had a great meal at Havana 59.
Previously,
we all
on
loved
the
it.
Inglorious Treksperts.
Loved it. It was great. So it was so good that we went back last year, and we had a terrible meal. Terrible. It was a horrible service. They brought the entree before the appetizers. We were in the smoking section, surrounded by a bunch of cigar smokers. It could not have been worse. So we're like, we're not going to go back there. But a year can erase a lot, and so also there weren't a lot of great options. We decided we would give Havana 59 another chance, and aren't we glad we did?
We are.
Yeah, because this was so fun. We had the greatest waitress. What was her name? It was like she had a cool name.
It was a great name, and my mind is blank.
And at some
I'm
point, we
sorry.
told her, we said, to amuse your captain, we said, listen, we almost didn't come back to this place because you went from goat to goat. You went from like lame to like, well, no, greatest of all time to lame.
Oh, right.
And then they went back to goat because and she felt terrible. It was like, well, it wasn't your fault that, you're doing great.
Yeah,
she
she did everything she could to make it up to us, and she was awesome.
And it was so funny because about halfway through the meal, the manager comes over and he goes, "I heard about what happened last year." We're like, "You heard?" He said, "Yeah, I heard.
I hear
I'm so sorry."
stories.
He was so apologetic, and then he says to us, "You want some salsa passes?" And we're like, "What?" Because it's
The forbidden dance, a-hole.
No, not
Up the stairs. Up the stairs.
not Labada, salsa. So,
Right.
so he says, "You
Salsa
want
is
some
not
salsa?"
not Planet Forbidden.
Yeah, so we're like, well, we're going to pass on the salsa passes, but thank you for inviting us. And they at the end they brought us free dessert.
Right.
They said, "We want to make it up to you. We're so sorry. Thank you for giving us another chance." And we were so glad we did. Havana 59, big thumbs up. Meal was great. Service was great. No complaints.
Yeah.
Although I
Meal
have to
great,
say,
service great.
I have to say, so we're leaving to go get our Uber to get back to the hotel. And there's this big lumbering guy, looks like Jack Reacher. Like he looks like a retarded Jack Reacher. And it brings over gets a stray cat to come over. And then he starts like getting a little aggro with it. He's like holding it over his head, and like the cat was getting really spooked. And I'm just looking at the guys, and I'm just like, you know what? Tell my family I died well. I felt like a clear. I said, because this guy is going to kick my ass, but I'm going over there anyway to stop this. And thank God for my future and for my family that he put the cat down, the cat ran away, and I didn't have to intercede. But I was so absolutely appalled by that, and I would have done something.
The honor of that little cat.
And I would have been, no, I did. It's not how you treat a cat.
Cut to
Not how you
Mark
treat
on
any
a
animal.
scooter. Dun, 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 dun,
It's
dun.
not how you treat. It was appalling. So anyway, but the next day, speaking of appalling,
Oh my God.
Appalling.
yeah. So Ashley, who did not join us for Havana 59, is like, well, I'm going to go tomorrow because I hear these guys, they're having great meals, they're having a great time. We had a bunch of friends with us, so it was really a good time. We go to Casa del Barco.
Oh, don't name the place.
No.
Casa del Barco. Casa
no.
del Barco.
No.
Yes, we did. We went to Casa del Barco. Tell us, Darren, about Casa del Barco.
Well, they have some amazing service there.
No, they don't. You're a liar, Mr.
Amazing in the sense that I couldn't believe it.
Yeah, okay.
Look, the waitress there, she meant well. She
Perfectly
tried.
sweet.
The only person to actually get their order correct was me.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
that-
you were the
that
only one.
almost never
We had a
happened.
table of what, 9 people, and the only
That-
person
Not even
that,
that.
who got their order was you. That everything else was incorrect.
Yeah.
You incorrect, sir.
Yeah.
But
It was in the
at
wrong
least
order.
everything took a long time to get.
Yeah.
A
A long time.
We were wondering what was
wrong
going on.
orders in the wrong, and not just the wrong order, but in the wrong order. Like just
Yeah.
at
What's
random.
that song? At the wrong time, in the wrong place. No.
Yeah, that's pretty much what that is. But there was kind of a happy ending.
There
What?
was absolutely a happy ending.
Well, yeah, but
not
before,
for
we were
them.
like, but I'm like, where's our, no free dessert? It was like, you want
Yeah,
Where's
dessert?
our
We
cup?
like-
we
we don't want
yeah,
dessert. We don't want anything. We just want to get the hell out of here.
want to get out because we've been here for so long and the food was not good
It was not tasty.
and it was wrong.
And it was just like, the whole thing was a mess. And it was too bad because the ambience was nice. It was down. It was a good looking restaurant. It was a
On
little
the
bit
water.
a little bit hopping. Not really. I don't know.
No, it wasn't that bad.
Yeah. And so, I really was hoping because, the fact is, Darren doesn't like to go for Mexican food. And
I'm
Darren
not a
was
fan
willing.
of Mexican food in the States.
He was willing to go with us for Mexican. He because there weren't a lot of options. And I thought, okay, good. Maybe this is a good meal. Darren will be more open to going to Mexican food in the future. Well, that's not going to happen. So we're sitting down. We're just at this point. We just want our freaking bill. And what happens, Ashley?
You wouldn't believe it. So we're waiting, and the woman comes out. God bless her. And turns out that our bill amounts to 1 penny. Why, you may ask? Well,
There was a
because you
fight in the kitchen. No.
There was no. Because apparently you have to have at least a charge of 1 penny to write a tip. Now, you may be asking yourself, but wait, Ashley, are you burying the lead about the fact that your dinner only costs you 1 penny? Did they comp us everything, right? Did they come through in the end?
Not
Answer,
on purpose.
No, only on accident. Because somehow in the system, they managed to lose our entire order. It didn't go through to the register. And nobody could figure out how to rebuild it without sending the order back to the kitchen. So they just said,
They couldn't figure out how to ask us. So what did you have? What did you have? What did you have? No, that was apparently too much to ask. So
I don't know why we're complaining about that part.
I'm
I'm not complaining. I'm just saying it's indicative of the idiocracy we live in.
Yeah, it was astonishing. It was astonishing. My favorite part, though, other than that we charge you a penny so you can give me a tip. And you know what? Bless her. That job is so hard. Even if the service sucked, you give them something.
She did it with a smile. So even
did
though
a
she was
smile.
thoroughly incompetent, she was nice.
She
So
was
of course
very
we're gonna,
nice.
and we're never not gonna tip. Even the worst service, we're not gonna not tip. But it was
Exactly. It's
interesting because I had bought dinner on Friday night or Thursday night at Havana 59. So my college roommate who was with us, my good friend Mitch Rubenstein, he said, I'm gonna buy everybody dinner. Thank you for having me. The Treksperts have been very kind and welcoming. So I'm going to buy dinner. And so we're like, okay, great. So he ended up basically having to pay 1 cent for dinner.
It was astonishing. My favorite little detail was at the end, she hands him a review card and she says, write us a review for our contest.
You don't want that. You don't want
I'm
us
like,
to do that.
I think he could win, honestly. I like his chances, but it's going to be out of the box.
Oh my God. It was not great. And I got to say, I think the likelihood of us going next year, unlikely. Magic 8 Ball says the future is hazy.
Outlook uncertain.
Unless we want to see if we can repeat the experience.
No, I don't think so. And, I love Mexican food, but this was not good. Not good. Okay. So we did have, Darren and I had a delightful meal at Julep's New Southern Cuisine with none other than Jonathan Frakes. And I have to say, we always have a great time with Jonathan. Although, this is the first time where the waiter was really incredibly deferential to him. And it was like we weren't there. Well, can I get you anything else, Mr. Frakes? That never happens. But like this guy was clearly a fan. Yeah. So it was like, oh, why don't you try this, Mr. Frakes? Perhaps we'd like to try something. What would you like to drink, Mr. Frakes? It's like,
Jonathan ordered a couple things, and he shared with us, and it was very nice, and I couldn't imagine a nicer dinner.
It was so nice, and it's always great to spend time with him. And I have to say, I don't sample the lobster bisque just for anyone. Right. Because, I'm not a seafood person. So he's like, you got to try the lobster. It's really good, the lobster bisques. And I'm like, do I have to? It's like, how do you say no to number one? You have to do it. So
it's either that or the oysters.
I wasn't having the oysters. I got to draw the line somewhere. I was not having the oysters. Plus, they're an aphrodisiac, and who needed that?
Nobody would need that.
Yeah. So it's Klingon
Ingloriously, of course.
So anyway, but it was lovely, really, really nice meal. Really great service, all kidding aside. And
it's a shame we don't have the recording from that.
Oh, my God. You're right, Mr. Frakes.
It's like a salon
picture,
more than
Mr.
a
Frakes. But we had a really nice meal. It's always good to see Jonathan. And then it wouldn't be a trip to Richmond if we didn't decapper Perry's in Short Pump.
Damn right.
And it was interesting because, we go on Sunday for a very specific reason. So Ashley can get the special. What is the special, Ashley?
The special is the pork chop dinner, Perry's famous pork chop dinner. You get the pork chop, which is big enough to feed a family. And not just like a regular standard issue nuclear family. I'm talking about like devout Catholic. You know what I'm saying? Like just a lot of kids. Like you could feed everyone. With that pork, but you just not on Friday.
You could almost say that you went whole hog.
I went whole hog, exactly. But you get like a vegetable. You get like a dessert if you want. Yeah. You get lobster bisque if you'd like to have.
I was in the back trying to save Wilbur, but I was afraid that they were going to kick my.
It was some pig.
I've been to Perry's. I don't know how many times, different places. There's the one like in Dallas, the one in Richmond, one in Austin. And I always try to get the pork chop special because that's what Perry's is famous for, and it is amazing. But you cannot eat it in one sitting. Somehow, twice in my life, except in Short Pump, where I can do it. He
explained to you how you should eat it. I love the waiter walked you through how to consume the dish. I thought that was
great.
Go
in this order, and you can get it.
And didn't Hazel get it too? Didn't Hazel get one as well?
She didn't last year.
David DOCHTERMAN did.
My brher did. Yeah.
And I kept trying to convince him not to like eat appetizers because he would not be able to finish in PS. I was right.
Yeah, he didn't make it.
He didn't make it. Yeah. He fell apart is what he did. He couldn't stand up for the big game. He didn't know.
Yeah. Now it was it's interesting because it's funny because again, we had such a great experience at Perry's Austin. And then we went to Perry's Richmond last year expecting to have an equally wonderful experience, and it was okay. It wasn't great.
Fine. Yeah.
It was fine. But this year, it was really good.
Yeah.
And I'm glad we ate outside on the deck. It was really nice. Come closer to the fire. I see your fire is burning.
Your fire is dying here.
Yeah. I was just waiting
They
for
say
Tote
time
to
is
come
the
over
fire in
with
which our pork
with
chops
the little.
burn.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's stick with the Raiders references and not
Sorry.
go with the Generations references. I mean, I know this is a Star Trek podcast, but still, there's certain things we don't need to reference.
Why don't you tell me where the pork chop is right now?
Clearly, it's not on Ashley's plate.
No, it is not. It would be gone.
So I know, but I want to assure the audience that we did other things. We forgot one story. I was going to say, we did stuff besides eat in Richmond, but now I have another story about a meal. So one day for lunch, we go to
Oh, yes.
MK Steak.
I think I missed this one too.
And the business card at the front at the cashier. By the way, that waitress was awful too. But we go to MK Steak, she was terrible. So there's a business card at the front, and the business card of the manager is Nicholas Myers. Nicholas Myers. So what did you say, Darren?
I looked at the card and I said, "Look, we love the Wrath of Khan, but your pulled pork sandwich leaves much to be desired."
Well,
Oh, he tasked me. Oh my God, that
And then
hamburger.
you go and post the guy's business card on online.
I did.
Who knows what strange
I thought it was
emails he
funny.
received.
I just like Nicholas Myers. Now there are two of them. Now he's, the directing thing isn't working out, so now he's running restaurants in Richmond. Anyway, because they announced that whole con, as we talked about last week on the show, the con podcast. But Nick Meyer had written the whole script, but apparently the podcast script is not by him, nor did he direct the podcast.
Yeah.
So it's just like, so I don't know what happened in terms of Nick's whole involvement with it, or to the extent that he wanted to be involved, and I don't know.
Who knows? I think
We'll have to find out next time we
I think
talk.
they gave him a story credit.
Yeah, right.
Good.
I wonder if it's because they had to adapt it for the different medium, but still,
No, it has
apparently
nothing to do with that. No.
his scripts were very good from everything we were told.
Well.
So anyway, I haven't read his scripts, but I heard they were very good for the miniseries, for the Con miniseries. Now the story about why the Con miniseries happened is hysterical, but we're not going to talk about that because that would be nasty, and I'm not going to do
another
it.
time, maybe.
Nasty.
Okay. So we did a lot of eating, but I want to assure you we did a lot of conventioning too. We did a bunch of panels, bunch of great panels all through the weekend. Every day we were moderating. We were at the Inglorious Treksperts booth where we signed posters and giveaways for the fans, and it was always good to see our friends in Richmond, and obviously it was just a fantastic convention. You can't get enough of GalaxyCon, and of course we hope that we'll see more of you when we continue the Inglorious Treksperts live tour, because we'll be in Oklahoma City on May 23rd to 25th.
Yep.
And that's going to be a great one. And then we'll be down in New Orleans on July 11th. New Orleans on July 11th to 13th. And that will have an incredible lineup of Star Trek stars at that one. And of course, Darren's going to be in Raleigh in July, and then Ashley's going to be in San Jose.
If all goes well, that's going to be incredible as well. We're not saying anything yet, but just
that's the rumor. It's going to be incredible because it's just you. You're not going to be pulled down by the dead weight that is your
bogged down
co-hosts.
by the other Treksperts.
That's right, exactly. You'll have the con. So
you bloodsucker.
Con you. Yeah, exactly. But it's great because I think the one thing with us when we do these panels and when we do a multiple somebody we've interviewed before, it's very important to us to not go over the same ground.
Yeah.
We want to ask different questions. And I think of the times we've talked to Jonathan, this might have been the most fun, the most fertile, the most interesting. It's certainly the most funny.
Absolutely.
Because we all have such a great relationship. Everybody gets along so well. I've known him for 30 years. You guys have known him for a long time. And we all have such a
We love the
easy
mayor of Star
relationship.
Trek.
Yeah, and it's
Who
not
wouldn't?
even like we're doing a panel. It's like we're sitting in a living room that happens to have a stage, and we're just kind of talking
It
crap.
totally is that, and that's what we try to make it. We try to make it where like you're just sitting in on a conversation we're having without without certain things being discussed, and that you can just enjoy the ride. And I think that this was I got to say, I think DAREN was particularly on top of his game during this panel. So I hope people are going to enjoy it as much as we did. And of course, if you're a fan of Jonathan and also want to help, now is the time to make a donation to PanCan, the Pancreatic Cancer Network, where they're fighting pancreatic cancer, looking for cures, and of course, with government funding in peril, there's never been a better time to support PanCam and Team Trek. That's Jonathan Frakes, Armin Shimmerman, Kitty Swink, and Juan Carlos Cotto, Manny Cotto's brother. It's pancan.org/Team Trek, and you can support the human adventure as they walk to benefit PanCan. And I hope you'll support them. I know we are all going to do that, and I'm sure I'd like to do that as well.
Indeed.
Now,
Indeed.
okay, well, that's enough of our yapping. I think it's time to...
Red alert!
After these brief commercial messages, we'll be joined by Jonathan Frakes, and then we'll be back at the end of the show with a few closing thoughts, so stay tuned.
You've done these panels before, haven't you? You know how they work?
I heard you need a microphone.
Yeah, okay.
Nice uniform, brother.
Some hack wore it before, but...
Oh!
good morning, sir.
Too good to have dinner with us?
Yes, sir.
Fair enough. Is this me here?
No, actually, they wanted you over here in the middle.
Yeah, so we're gonna rearrange around you.
If you had, made the staff meeting
more
before,
powerful
and
robot.
not run out
I
on
was making-
stage.
I have a reputation to uphold.
I know. I know.
Good morning.
You can lay back if you'd like.
Volare! Bullshit. See, it doesn't even pay off the second time.
So, tell us about your childhood.
I was one of the lucky ones. My parents supported me. They were kind and thoughtful and funny.
Were they though?
Dead.
So you said you have a reputation to uphold. So does that mean you're going to spill the tea on Starfleet Academy that you just directed?
I could give you a little Starfleet Academy if I don't go, if I start going into that territory where CBS sends me the,
Cease and desist.
the cease and desist. And what the hell were you thinking?
Yeah.
You heard that story.
Yeah, I have heard that story.
Not to talk about those things.
You ruined everything we set up, Frakes! It was a surprise!
We were going to surprise them, and you ruined
You ruined it. I said I would never do anything to hurt Star Trek. You ruined it today!
Everybody out of the pool, go home. Frakes ruined it for everyone.
Do they have...
I had loose lips. I said I was on a panel and the band was on there, and they were talking about the mirror universe. And they said, "How come Next Gen was never in the universe?" I said, "I don't know, but I just finished a great episode of Discovery where they pack characters who were actually in the mirror universe in Lorca and then I could see the drummer texting. Frakes does it. And then the end of the day, we went and had some seafood tower at some restaurant, and all the shit hit the fan. I heard from them. They were really genuinely pissed. So if I start to get into a territory when we start to talk about Starfleet,
We won't stop you, don't worry.
We'll wait for the seafood tower, and then we'll...
yeah, I'll get to right before the seafood tower. First of all, it was the levity in the show was much. I had no idea it was going to be funny, and it is funny, which really made me happy. And I remember one of the because Starfleet Academy, as all you hardcore trekkers know, has been talked about for probably decades, at least years. And one of the suspicions was that, who wants to see the bunch of kids in the school? This show has a ship, and I mean, it opens up the whole world, and they're in jeopardy. It also has movie stars. The great Holly Hunter is in the show. The mighty and powerful Paul Giamatti is in the show. The Emmy Award-winning Tatiana Maslany from...
And a great bunch
Polite
of people that
applause,
never
I would
heard
say,
of
for all three.
Well, no broadcast news fans. I mean, Holly Hunter's telling the Starship Captain how to get to the planet, make a right on Lincoln and make a right on things. No? That must be great. I mean, you've had the chance, speaking of directing, to direct so many wonderful talents. I mean, you know, obviously Alice Krieger, Patrick, Sir Ben Kingsley.
I knew you were going to go to Sir Ben.
How could you not go to Sir Ben?
He was a mensch. Patrick and everybody else said, Ben Kingsley eats directors for breakfast. He's going to chew you up, Frakes. Oh, great. What a great feeling that's going to be. First of all, he showed up on the set early in his, what was that character's name? The bad guy in Thunderbirds. Just went out of my head.
Darren?
The Hood. And he had his long gowns on. He knew the crew because it was shot in London. He'd come on the set. He'd stay on the set all day long. And when you got a print, you know, a couple takes in, he said, Jonathan, would you mind if we run it again? I've got a couple of things I'd like to try. I thought, yeah. Yes, Sir Ben. I got you.
Did he walk out like a puppet?
No, he didn't give me the puppet. I got that out of some of the other Thunderbirds.
But F. Murray Abraham, too.
Oh, Murr is a favorite. And he looked good in that rubber face, too.
Who
A lot of
doesn't?
actors can't work with their rubber heads, but Murray did.
Well, you had
Murr.
lots of experience on Amadeus.
Yeah.
You must come and see Amadeus. He's a great actor, too.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Fantastic. I mean, just all these terrific actors. And do you feel that being an actor yourself gives you an advantage, you know, as a director?
I think with most actors it does because you speak actor and you know how sort of insecure we all are and childlike and childish and needy and egotistical and selfish and
Grumpy,
Go on.
sleepy,
grumpy, self-involved.
dopey, bashful, Doc.
Disrespectful of the furniture.
Disrespectful of the furniture and the props and the costumes. But I think there's something about, especially actors who are trained actors who have a method, either the Stanislavski method, or they went to the neighborhood playhouse, or the actor's studio. If they have a method to their madness, and I've worked with people from all those different kind of schools of acting, and you can respect it because that's how they work, and that's what their process is. I was more of a, what do we call in the business, a hit it and spit it actor. There's the mark. Step up to the mark. Red alert! How was that?
That was great.
Great.
Print.
Print, exactly. But it's not always that easy. I did have the best gig, though, on our show on Next Gen. Could we go to those painfully long scenes in the conference room with the purple chairs at the conference room? Yeah. And we'd all be gathered, and we were all there for the day. And I'd sit next, Patrick would be at the head of the table, and everybody with all the lines was around it. I would say, report. And then they'd bullshit for about 5 pages. LeVar and Brent would rattle off that technobabble, and I'd say, thank you. It was a fantastic day's work.
Those scenes are almost as horrible to shoot as like a dinner scene. because
Oh,
you
it's
gotta
like a
cover
poker
everything.
game. Yeah, the coverage is hard. You got to figure out where you're going to split the table, who's going to be. But those are the scenes often where the secret that Marina's birthday yesterday, by the way, for all you Counselor Troy fans. In the beginning of Star Trek Next Generation, like in the pilot, it was clear that those two had a very big, serious affair. They loved each other. She had taught me how to be empathic, and we spoke to each other that way. And then magically, the writers decided we'll just let that go away so those two characters could be available for all their sort of alien encounters, if you will. But Marina and I said, well, these characters were in love, and they probably still are in love, so without making a meal of it, we often referenced anything that we could relate to as characters in a relationship, we would do a meaningful look. And sometimes in those meetings, something would be said, and if I was directing it, I said, I know I can go to Marina now because she's thinking something or she did something or we would find something to do. And then magically, by the time we did Nemesis, somebody said, what a great idea. What about those two characters getting married?
Yeah.
So we take full credit.
Until you found out what Imzadi actually meant.
My Imzad.
Well, you mentioned
Hold
Marina's birthday. You share a birthday with, or shared a birthday with Gene Roddenberry and Diana Muldaur.
And?
And who else?
I got you?
You got me.
Bob Blackman,
Oh, well, Bob Blackman. Okay. So
costume designer.
Yes.
my question for you is, if you had to celebrate your birthday with one of them, who would it be?
Well, I've had the privilege of celebrating my birthday with Gene Roddenberry at the famous ex-Hollywood restaurant called Sardi's.
Yeah.
Not Sardi's. Is that
No.
a Sardi's? No, the place down on Beverly that was torn down.
Chasen's.
Chasen's, at
Chasen's. Yeah,
Chasen's.
yeah,
And Roddenberry, before he moved to his fancy Bel Air house, lived, or I don't know, he had another house, not far from where Jeannie and I lived. I'm married to Jeannie Francis, the lovely and talented Laura from General Hospital, my partner in life for 40 years in May.
Congratulations.
God bless her. Hey, Bean. She's working her ass off. Anyway, we were invited to Gene's house on the way to Chasen's. Sardi's, that's the place in New York that you go to after the... I got a great Sardi's story for you. And so we stopped at the Roddenberry's to have a drink before we went down to Chasen's. And Roddenberry had a Rolls Royce,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Like a yellow Rolls Royce that the lawyer gave him or something like that.
The kind with the hot tub in the back?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we got after we got the drink, we were going down to go to the dinner, and we followed them in our car, and the Rolls Royce pulls over to the side of the road. Have I told you this before?
No, this is a new story.
It pulled out the side of the road, and Majel, who was driving, gets out of the car and comes back into my car and said, Gene wants to ride with Jonathan. So Majel takes Jeannie in the Rolls, and Gene gets in my old whatever I was driving. It wasn't my Toyota.
Rolls?
It wasn't. Let me just say it wasn't a Rolls. So Gene gets in my car, and we go down there, and we go to. And it wasn't like there was an event. It was just a dinner with the cast, and we got out of the car and we go into the thing. And to this day, we ask each other, what was that about?
I wanted to see how it would be if number one would drive me.
Yeah, if number one. That's not bad. That's not bad. You worked on that?
You never heard me do that before?
I have, but I've forgotten. Not many people can
Eugene Roddenberry.
or judge it effectively.
Yeah, no, I think I'm the only
Jonathan,
Yeah.
your beard looks nautical.
I really enjoy that nautical beard. It leads an air of mystique to you,
Yes,
and I really enjoy it.
If we could cut it, it would be decorative.
See, but you go full leprechaun with it. You
Aye,
can't go full
matey.
leprechaun with it.
You kept some of the soft Texan that he had going.
You know, he did it for Shatner, and Shatner's like, I don't remember what Gene sounded like.
Oh, come on, Bill.
Very sad.
I heard Bill entertained yesterday by opining on the world of love. Is that true?
Who better?
Yeah, were you here?
No, I just wish I were.
Well, he has a lot of experience in that area, so.
No,
No, that's a good thing. That's a Captain Kirk reference. It's not a reference.
Oh, I
to-
see.
Yeah.
Oh, so you think he is Captain Kirk?
I do think
He
he's Captain Kirk.
absolutely is Captain Kirk.
Oh, he is Captain Kirk.
William Shatner is just a role that he plays on stage.
So he wasn't T.J. Hooker
Oh, no.
No.
and the guy from the
was Captain
Lawyer
Kirk.
Show,
Right.
Denny Crane.
Danny Crane,
Danny
who I
Crane?
loved.
He was great. Fantastic. Well, he won 2 Emmys for it. It's fantastic.
He was great in that show. He and what was the star of that show?
Spader.
He and Spader, they would have the scotch at the end of the show, and one of the episodes was about they were defending a person who ate other people. They were defending a cannibal. And at the end of the show, they had their scotch and they had 2 shot, and they're looking. And Shatner looked at him and said, would you eat me? And Spader said, I don't know. Would you eat me? And then the camera pulled. It was fantastic.
Oh my God.
So clever. He was great. He's a wonderful
He's
actor.
wonderful.
He's an
terrific.
inspiration, too. Absolutely.
94 years old. Speaking of birthdays, 94 years old.
Yeah.
And just absolutely
Completely there.
amazing.
And curious and interested and interesting. And
He says that's what keeps him young, his curiosity. His
that's exactly
insatiable
what he told me.
curiosity.
Yeah, it's real.
It is. He's genuinely interested. It's not that Hollywood interest. Like,
Yeah, and when he's really tuned into you, we talked about this last night, he can look into your eyes and make you think you're the only person in the room, that he's really, Michelle Yeoh has that talent and gift, which is very rare.
Yeah. You
It could be acting. It could be mistaken for acting.
You mentioned Michelle Yeoh, and one of the things we want to talk about today was directing. Now, your long and illustrious directing career. And one of the things you said earlier about, being able to talk to actors, I wonder if before you started directing, did you ever have a checklist in your head when you worked with different directors saying, this is a good director, this is a bad director, I do this when I direct, I wouldn't want to do this if I ever get to direct?
That's a really good question. One of the things I swore I would never do, and I think I stuck to it, it was a pet peeve of mine when we'd be, I guess, at the end of coverage on one person, and we'd printed a number of takes, and the director would say, okay, Jonathan, let's do one just for you. I thought, what the fuck do you think I was just doing? We're all selfish. They were all for me. They were all how I thought the character would be. And it's such a cheap, isn't it a cheap direction?
It's pandering.
It means they want one more.
Pandering. Yeah,
They want
if you
one-
want one more, and I'll try anything. I literally will try anything you ask me to do.
Yeah.
When Patrick was directing, we had a scene in, you probably heard the story already. We had a scene in engineering, and he had in mind a shot that he really wanted where the camera was on the floor and you could see the, what do they call the dilithium chambers or whatever the hell those things are in the middle of the engineering, and Geordie and all this stuff. And he said, Jonathan, if you would come in and just come about halfway across, and if there's any way you could just get down on your knees like that. I said, in the middle of the room? He said, well, yeah, it really works for the shot. And I did. I walked into the room and I knelt down with no motivation because he'd asked me to do it. Then he said, would you kiss my ring? And I said, well,
Hearing you say the dilithium chamber or whatever the hell it is, there was an old short story in one of the Star Trek collections back in the 70s, but the actors find themselves transported to the real Enterprise. They have to pass them off as their characters, right? It's Galaxy Quest. It was the original Galaxy Quest. I fear for you if you were ever in that situation.
oh. Yeah.
Red alert!
Exactly. Or report. I do remember Majel, the late great Majel Roddenberry, telling us that she didn't like to beam in and out of scenes because it affected her molecules inside her body, that she felt it.
It is real.
Okay, speechless response.
I'm literally speechless.
Yeah.
I shouldn't be because it was Majel, but I'm
Yeah.
speechless.
But when you watch the beam-ins, I know this is old lore, that the last thing that comes and the last thing that goes out is
the center,
what
yeah,
they
the
expect
core.
is the soul of the core, which I thought was kind of
It's the love center.
is the
Of human
love center.
So, you've been doing the show for 2 years, and you went to Rick Berman and said, I'd like to direct. Can you tell us?
No, I said to Rick Berman early in the first year, I'd like to direct. And he rolled his eyes, knowing this was coming. And he said, well, you shadow. And that means you follow the other directors around. So I shadowed all of those directors, and some of them were wonderful and really helpful and experienced. I stole a lot from Cliff Bowl, who had been directing on Aaron Spelling shows, who knew how to work fast, he knew what kind of coverage he needed. He didn't do extemporaneous stuff, and yet occasionally he'd have a really good note. And Rick Colby was the same way, and he'd have a really insightful note that really helped, so, and everybody had something to offer, really. Most of them were experienced TV directors. So I hung around. Whenever I was working, I went to set, and whenever I was not working, I went to set. And eventually I was able to go to the editing room and spend 300 hours in there because I knew nothing really about editing. And those guys were generous, Letterman and others, because, and Tom Benko, they all wanted to be directors themselves. So it was very, generous of them to share with some stupid actor all their secrets.
Get enough credit for that, because for better or for worse, you opened the door to other people as well, your success.
But it was, it didn't come easily because it was in the 3rd season. So we're talking about 26 episodes a year. And sweet Jeannie Francis, who I just mentioned, one day I remember I was living in her house out in Tarzana, and I said, and I wasn't shooting. And I said, I don't think I'll go in today. And that's exactly what Rick's waiting for.
Yeah.
Was for you to stop showing interest so he can say, well, you clearly don't give a shit about this. I got my car and sped off to Paramount.
You chose your wife well.
Really.
That was great advice.
It really was, and she instinctively knew that was the case. And as a result of being sort of over-prepared, in addition to being over-prepared and having the advantage of it being a data show, The Offspring, written by the great Rene Echevarria, his first episode and his spec script from which he was hired on the show. He went on to be the producer on Castle and others, and one of the NCISs or the CSI. Anyway, Rene was, so those 3 elements, and this is the support of the company. The sound department gave me a megaphone to call action through. I mean,
Did you
it was
get
really,
jodhpurs too?
I did have I had jodhpurs and a whip, and that would seem to be a bit much for some. But it was, I was very, very happy that it happened when it did, because often, or sometimes is better, probably the better adjective, an actor is given an opportunity to direct an episode of the show that he's in as a regular and is not prepared, thinks he is, or she is, and counts on the good grace and talent of the cinematographer and the first AD and the editor and the other actors, and to bail them out, because you can get yourself in trouble if you don't have the proper shots by the end of the day. And it's all about a schedule and prep. I digress.
But you learned that early, that the AD needs to be your friend. So when you board it,
Oh, man.
that's so important.
Robert Altman, name drop.
No relation.
All total relation. You never met him?
Never.
Fabulous. His son, I used to live with Steve Altman, which is his son, and I did a Miller Lite commercial for Bob at one
No
point.
relation.
No relation. Steve Altman, not your cousin? No. Okay. And Altman said to me, before I even knew I wanted to direct, that the most important thing about being a director is to understand what your first AD does. And what your first AD does is schedule your life, really. Yeah. And he does it with you by his side and say, do you think we can do this scene in 3 hours? And do you think that character will be ready for this in 4 hours? And how much time should we allow? And what a insightful and accurate. And now on these big shows like Strange New Worlds and Starfleet Academy, which we did not have on Next Gen, there's a cinematographer who rotates. So the cinematographer and their 2 first ADs, so you can prep literally for the entire episode before yours with the people who you're going to make your episode with. And it's huge if you spend that time properly.
And they're much longer schedules. I mean, you were doing that in 7-8 days on Next Gen. Now you're doing what, 12
we do
days?
12, yeah, we do. It was 7 days and 26 episodes, and now we do 12 days and 10 episodes. Yeah. What's that tell you? Are the shows any better?
No.
Loaded
But
question.
they're more expensive.
I'll always tell it like it is. I want to ask you about that Offspring, because, of course, one of the other things you're involved with, but less in television than with features, is casting. And, of course, finding Hallie Todd was a gift.
Good pull, Hallie Todd.
I haven't lost it yet.
God, he was going to go Halle Berry.
Yeah, I was going to say that. Hallie Todd for Lal.
One of Brent's favorite actors, Halle Berry. He was in that show with her. Remember that?
What was
he
that?
defended, it was a court show, I thought.
Help us.
No.
No, the
That's
other
John Larroquette, who people often mistake for Halle Berry.
Right.
Right. Yeah.
Anyway, it'll come to one of us at some point. Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, so tell us a little bit about the casting process as well. Obviously, the showrunner, then there wasn't showrunners, but you had Rick, who was representing the production side. You had the head of the writing staff, which at the time was Michael Piller, but he wasn't as involved as Rick was in those kind of decisions. So, coming to terms on like casting the lead top of show.
Yeah.
What was that like, and what happens when you don't necessarily agree, and
That happens too.
also being an actor judging other actors at that point.
Well, before COVID, all of the callbacks, Junie Lowry was our casting director who cast our show, and she was spectacular. I've worked with her a lot. She would weed through maybe, 50, 60 actors for a guest star, and then would present to Rick and me, or Rick and whoever the director was, a callback list of 5 to 10 people. And they would literally come into a room, and someone from Junie or Junie herself would read with them. Unless it was a huge part, then the person who was like Brent would have to come in and act with his daughter, but I don't think that happened in that case. And then from that, we would either make a decision or we would make an adjustment. If there's somebody you really liked, you know this, you give them an adjustment to see if they can take the adjustment. And that way you can see if they, because we as actors often really are prepared for our auditions. And if you can't get them off what they think, those are the actors who practice in the mirror.
If you can't respond to the notes, then
Yeah,
they're
then maybe that,
Yeah.
exactly. Then they're sort of, "Meh." So then a decision is made, hopefully collectively, and if not, Rick gets because Rick's wife, Liz, who is the godmother to my son, Jamo, by the way, Liz Berman says, Rick, there's no control like total control, which is, that's how Berman ran things. He was a very smart cookie.
And he's left an incredible legacy of shows, that's for sure.
Well, it's the Berman era, and they're all, a lot of the writers on these other shows refer to it because a lot of good stories came out of that, and a lot of the way things, look what happened to Brannon and Ron. Brannon Braga and Ron Moore were spectacular as a team, and then when they split up as a team, they kept their careers going. They're massive successes. Renee, a number of people that came out of those.
Noreen even?
Oh, Noreen
Yeah.
Shankar was a huge success after. And a lot of that, I don't know that Michael Piller gets enough credit.
He doesn't. He
'Cause-
deserves more.
Absolutely. He was generous in a way that showrunners, I know aren't now, where they take spec scripts from people.
Yeah.
And he would read them, and he would encourage them, and he would bring them in. And Jerry Taylor, the same thing, she rest in peace. She was spectacularly kind to writers, which is not always the case.
It was the definition of an incubator for all these writers.
Exactly. And then, because the show was received, as you may or may not remember, it's people of a certain age, with some skepticism. They wanted their Kirk and Spock and Bones Star Trek. They didn't want a bald captain with a French name. They didn't want a Klingon on the bridge. They didn't want a blind guy driving the ship. They, a lot of
He
things. they
stopped
thought-
doing, by the way.
And certainly not a non-bearded first
Exactly.
officer.
So that was, it took 3 years to get the core audience of you guys on our side. And during that, the writers cranked out 26 a year, and they weren't all home runs, God knows.
But you got to do what was so great about that show, unlike when you're doing, say, NCIS, where it's kind of the same show every week, right?
Kinda?
Yeah, okay, it is. I'm being polite. But when you're doing, you did something like Cause and Effect, which people would think, oh, it's an easy show to do because the same scenes keep repeating. But it's not. It's harder.
I
You gotta
thought
do it different every time.
Exactly. And Brannon Braga, who wrote Cause and Effect,
Yeah.
I thought he was taking the piss out of me because they sent this script down, and I read it. I thought,
Wait a
this is the same fucking act over and over again. Are you kidding? I
the
thought it was
beauty
a
of it.
joke, and it
got
clearly
paid
wasn't
exactly
a joke.
the
When I looked at the end of each act, there was an important, significant story point or clue, so everything had to be, and that's where planning came in. Because all those shots, all those scenes in the bridge that were the same scene, before you left the setup, you have to say, are we going to do these for all 5 acts? Or are we going to do this different? This line will be probably in another size, another. There was a lot to. That was a great exercise, a great directing.
So in every location setup, you had to do
think
five
about
versions.
5
and
versions
know
of
where you were.
Yeah, and 5 versions of the coverage to
Yeah.
see who was getting the coverage, the tight coverage, and then by the end, generally you get it tighter by the end of the show, so you're into the really. Oh, now we've got all the pieces put together. And
Push in on you, and you're very concerned now.
now you're more concerned.
A director who doesn't prep as meticulously as you would be so lost doing that episode.
Well, they would have, if you didn't have a game plan. And that's Jerry Fleck, another one, may he rest in peace, was my first on a whole bunch of those. He was a great first, and he did the movies with me. He was spectacular and patient and smart and efficient and organized, and it's worth its weight in gold.
And you're doing all these great scripts, and then another Brandon special comes across your desk. Beverly falls in love with a ghost.
Wow. That show has taken a beating, hasn't it?
Deservedly or not?
It deserves had a renaissance.
It had a renaissance because of the absurdity, right?
Yeah, very much so.
What was that actor's name?
Duncan Rieger.
Duncan Rieger.
Halle Berry.
Duncan Rieger. Halle Berry.
This week, Beverly falls in love with a ghost on Star Trek: The Next Generation.
Green smoke came out of the thing. It turned into Duncan Rieger and made love to Dr. Crusher.
Duncan Rieger is selling those candles now at conventions.
What?
Available on the floor.
Merch.
If Morgan Gandel can sell flutes, then he can sell candles.
Is that what happens?
Yes, Morgan Gandel is a very successful inner light flute business.
Surely you jest.
No, I'm serious about.
Fuck. I can sell horgons.
Didn't you bring one?
Those last 30 seconds wouldn't play anywhere else except for with a Star Trek.
If you're in search of Jamaharon, get one of these.
Call now. Limited edition.
You didn't bring one on the cruise? I thought you had one.
God.
But that's crazy. So then you've had this very successful career, and starting to do Star Trek. You're starting to branch out to do other shows. After Generations, David Carson's done because him and Rick sort of butted heads. They're looking for a director to do the second movie, First Contact, which
Great
is
movie.
Great opportunity
script.
for you, right? A huge hit.
But Star Trek 8.
Yeah,
So Spielberg and Zemeckis are not going to be doing Star Trek 8,
probably not.
right? So then there's other directors who obviously are looking to get a good job. And Sherry Lansing was the head of the studio at that time. And allegedly, Sherry said to Rick, I love this franchise. Obviously, Star Trek had been very good to Paramount, but I really don't understand it. So Rick, you can make the decision about who directs the next movie. So I, of course, threw my big, fat ass hat into the ring. Ass hat.
You threw your ass hat into the ring.
And competed with whoever the other directors were who wanted the job. And ironically, Patrick had in his contract that he had director approval, which is a thing. So Patrick and I went to lunch at what is now the late great Jerry's lunch. You know Jerry's over in the valley, which is a great deli.
Now
and
gone.
we sat and had lunch. And he said, "You know why we're here?" I said, "Yeah, right." He said, "This is great, isn't it? I get to approve whether or not I want you, my favorite director, to direct the next movie." So I said, "Is that part of the lunch over?" He said, "Yeah, we're fine."
But you're paying?
I'll pay.
10%.
But that turned out, I mean, the script was flawless, and I've always, as I talk about it over the last few years, I realize that probably as important as the script is the fact that the casting of Alfre Woodard, my godmother, and Jamie Cromwell, coming off The Babe, and the incredible Alice Krige, who you just referenced, those three guest stars fit so well with us in terms of their style and the way they worked and the way they played, that it felt like they were part of it didn't feel like they were the guests,
Right.
didn't it? It felt like they were part of the company. And I think that was as big the script, again, was bulletproof, and it was a great story. Westmore's work was great. Leonetti, the cinematographer's work was great. All the Borg shit was astounding for that time. Some of the visual effects don't quite hold up now, but certainly what ILM did, John Knoll did with her spine coming down and hooking on to her body.
Talk about a shot that still stands up. It's
And because of the way
beautiful.
she acted it and the way he designed it and the way it was shot.
Well,
it
because
was-
at the end of the shot, it has legs.
Dun-dun-dun.
That's fabulous. Have you used that line before?
Never.
That just came to you?
Just came to me.
You'd be good at improv. You should work with Tawny Newsome.
Yes, and.
That's great. Yes, and?
And, of course, you discovered the great Adam Scott.
How about that?
Yeah.
Nice transition.
That's right.
Adam Scott was in the shuttlecraft with Worf when Worf grabbed the thing. And Adam Scott famously says we're approaching the Enterprise. Does he not? Yeah.
Okay.
So Adam Scott was on Smartless, which is my favorite podcast, about a month ago.
Your second favorite podcast.
My second favorite podcast. How inglorious of me. And he's talking about, they're quizzing him about his early career. They're clearly friends of his. He's plugging the season of Severance. And he started in, oh God, he's going to mention Star Trek. It's going to be great. He didn't. But he, I think that was one of his earliest gigs.
And we were talking just the other day about the original, this is not to give anything away about Severance, but the finale was going to be called, instead of Cold Harbor, they were going to call it First Contact.
Yes.
Yeah.
That was in the Social. I read that. So it's not giving anything away.
So it must be true.
Well, we know that's true. And thanks for getting me off of Starfleet Academy and not revealing anything that I would regret. But...
And Neil McDonough also.
Neil McDonough.
A great
he was
Hawk.
fantastic on Yellowstone.
A Star of Tomorrow.
And the greatest blue eyes in the business since Buscemi and the guy from Goodfellas who did all the cocaine. What was that character's name?
The first AD. No.
The first AD.
Who was that?
Ray Liotta.
Ray Liotta. He had Ray Liotta eyes. That's a song, isn't
That's
it?
a good song, yeah.
Betty Davis eyes.
Yeah. Follow-up. That's crazy. So yeah, and then huge success, and then you do Insurrection, which wasn't as successful, but you got to go on location a lot, which must have been nice.
We went on location to Ventura County.
Okay.
We went across the border.
Yeah, but it was nice that time of
15
year.
minutes to a golf course that Zimmerman had built the Baku village on. Let me ask you a Baku question. Why were there no people of color in the Baku if it was the ideal world?
Bad extras casting.
Fair enough. All right.
I mean, you tell us.
I don't know. I wouldn't. It feels like a mistake somehow.
A lot of things feel like mistakes when it comes to Insurrection, but yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah. Oh. Sorry.
No, you're right.
Yeah.
You're right. But not
But
Donna.
not you.
But not Donna.
But Donna Murphy's great.
She was fabulous.
Yeah, she's terrific.
I loved that casting. That was great.
Gene was dead by then.
Oh my.
He's dead, Jim.
Only
Season 4.
Only if we don't remember him.
Season 4. No more Gene.
And before we go to questions, I just want to talk about, without you
What
giving
were
away-
these?
Statements with a question mark at the end.
Because they want to ask you about gargoyles and beyond belief and all this other non-Star Trek stuff. But I do want to ask you,
Beyond
because-
Belief, we're trying to reboot. Come on.
Fresh memes for everyone.
do you believe it? True or not?
Fact or fiction? Well, this time
Unfortunately,
it's true.
that was a fabrication.
The writers made that one up. Who's the tallest man you ever saw? Have you ever been to a Chinese restaurant? You ever want to write your name in wet cement? Have you noticed how real estate agents have become celebrities? You ever go wandering beneath the deep blue sea?
Have you ever been to a Turkish prison?
Airplane.
Very good.
Very nice.
Paramount.
Yeah, that's right. You can only reference Paramount
That's
movies.
right.
So, last question before we go to the audience. Obviously, you've done now Discovery, you've done Strange New Worlds, you've done Starfleet Academy. Very different style compared to classic television, obviously. And not just those shows, but television in general. Can you talk about the transition from the days of sort of master over 7-day schedules to the more, what's called peak TV now, which a lot more days, a lot more money.
Yeah, more filmic.
A lot more cranes, a lot more
cranes
yeah.
and drones.
And how that,
What about, did I ask you this last night about adolescence?
yeah, all in one.
Mine was
Oh,
terrible.
right, the oneer. Yeah.
They're all one. There's 4 episodes, and they're each an hour-long oneer that are just astounding to watch.
A oneer is a shot that keeps going, even though it feels like different shots. It's all done in one take.
Yeah, it's breathtaking. They did an episode of The Bear like that, but it was only It was 17 or 19 minutes. These are hour-long. Anyway, I digress.
Nobody's going to be talking about Touch of Evil anymore when you have entire
The opening
TV
of that.
series. that are-
And the player.
Yeah.
The opening of the player. Rick didn't like moving the camera unmotivatedly, which I, for the most part, believe in. And then shows like NYPD Blue moves the camera all over the place. You remember that? Was NYPD where it was shaky cam and your people, it felt like they were looking at the wall and then they come back and it seemed to go so far in that direction.
Even Hill Street Blues was doing
And Hill
that
Street
back
did a
in
lot
the
of that.
80s, yeah.
I had a great part on Hill Street. I did. Drug dealer. Horrible asshole. I played a lot of bad assholes before Riker.
Typecasting?
No. Maybe. Maybe it was the 80s. But with the Discovery, they had a very, and actually the secret hideout Star Treks were influenced by the JJ Star Treks, because JJ and Alex Kurtzman had worked together on, I guess, most of the JJ movies. So, and also they had twice the budget to do those JJ movies. So the sort of more cinematic approach where you were design shots that did use a lot of cranes and did use a very specific and beautiful, and the sets were more expensive and grander, and everything about the level of the shows went up. I mean, when we went from the episodes of Star Trek to First Contact, the budgets went up and the amount of time you had, but the vibe was kind of similar.
Mostly the same crew, mostly the same keys.
Zimmerman was the same, but they brought Leonetti in to be the cinematographer. And I remember that we had the special effects guys are the guys that blow shit up. Terry Frazee was a famous visual special effects guy, and we were out scouting. We went on location on First Contact further than we did on Insurrection. We went up into the Angeles Crest Forest, and they built that place where the Vulcan came out of the, remember? It was a Vulcan, right?
Yeah, the Vulcan. Yeah, it was a Vulcan. Yeah.
Those guys with the ears on the
The
ship.
guy with the ears on the ship. Yeah. So we were up there talking about what we were going to do, and then there were houses built, and there was that great bar where he danced and hit the jukebox, and then there were, next to the houses were gardens. So I said to Frazee, so when the Borg bombed the village, we're going to blow up like some dirt and stuff like that, and because I was thinking like a TV guy, we'd blow up some of the dirt, but with some those bombs that you used to put in the toilet when you're in college, those
Right, M80s.
M80s. Yeah, I'd put an M80 and blow some plants out. And Frizzy looked at me like, "Oh, poor boy, no." All of these buildings will be gone.
Yeah.
That's when I knew that was the difference between a movie and a television show. All of the buildings will be gone.
That's great. Well, we have people lined up at the, oh my gosh.
God.
Okay. We're not going to get to all of you, but we're going to try it. So please keep your questions as short as possible. Concise. Yeah. Thanks.
We should talk to this side, though. Do the answers have to be short, too?
Yes. No. You're the man.
Go ahead.
Hi, Mr. Frakes. It's an honor to meet you. I just want to say thank you for everything you've done as Riker and for like the whole world of Star Trek. It means everything to me. I just wanted to ask what your favorite theme song was of the TV show.
Bum, ba-da-dum, ba-da-dum, ba-da-da-dum, bum, bum, ba-ba-dum. Patrick Stewart, Jonathan Frakes. Ba 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 da da.
Thank you, Mr. Frakes.
No problem.
I'm a little more partial to Faith of the Heart, but to each his own.
We're so sorry.
Thank you anyway.
Please sit down.
You ever play with one of those? Theremin?
A theremin, absolutely.
The reading, remember? In
Don't
Vegas.
snap at me, man.
No,
I
we had
just
the-
asked.
We had the theremin in Vegas.
Don't be so sensitive.
It was delicious.
You're right.
Mr. Kyle?
Hi. As a gentleman of a certain age myself who's been in a marriage for a certain time, I was wondering if you could speak to what it felt for you, what it meant for you to be able to play a relationship with Marina Sirtis's character for that long and to really let that relationship go into maturity, which you so rarely see in any medium. And I wondered how that felt for you.
That's a good question. And very specifically, the characters of Riker and Troy were affected in the, as you probably saw, in the first season of Picard, we found out that their son had died. And we had moved to Nepenthe with the hopes that some magical power in the systems around that planet would save our son's life. It didn't. And historically, psychologically, couples who lose a child struggle. And I think what they were saying in season 3 of Picard was that Riker wasn't allowed to or hadn't completed his mourning for his dead son in a way that Riker felt was not that it's ever complete, but fair. And part of it he put on his wife, who was an empath, who had somehow taken his grief or tried to identify his grief as her own. What I remember, we had played scenes about it that were quite powerful, but I think that was the gist of it, was that
she didn't allow you to process
exactly,
it yourself.
that's what it was. And I thought that was very wise and probably appropriate and probably accurate to a real married couple. And it was, I'm also a massive fan of Marina as an actor. I mean, she's a dear friend, but she's a fabulous actor. So when she brings, it's like working with Jeannie. When she brings that emotional stuff into a scene, you get better. And that's what, that's my memory of all that.
You did such magnificent work both in front and behind the camera on 17 Seconds. You directed that episode, and
Boy,
also
that was
you
a
had,
lucky break.
Boy, that's a great episode.
You know what happened? You know how I got that gig?
How'd you get that gig?
Chris, what's his name? The Canadian director that we use all the time.
Fisher?
No, not Fish, another Chris, who was invited in to do the block because they said, oh, Frakes can't direct in season 3 because he's going to be playing Riker. And I was kind of pissed, but I said, yeah, I get it. I know that because I'll be heavy in the show, and I hadn't. And it was during COVID, and CBS, Chris Byrne, you know Chris Byrne? I bet you do. At any rate, he had a Pfizer and what was the other one? Moderna. He had 2 different vaccines. CBS wouldn't let him in the country.
Oh my goodness.
Because he had the 2 instead of 2 of 1. And as a result, I got the gig. There's some inside sports.
Wow, that is interesting. Go ahead.
Hello, my name's Nathan. If there was an Academy show with a young Will Riker, who would you choose to play them? And if you were directing, could you remain impartial, or would you be writing them to be perfect?
Good question.
Good question. I used to say Will Wheaton, but now Will Wheaton's is 40-something. Adam Scott, also too old. That's a good question, to which I have no answer.
That kid from Adolescence.
Oh my God.
Oh, yeah.
He's killing it.
Yeah.
That's a great call.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good casting call. What he said.
What advice would you give them to play a young you?
Hit it and spit it.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Lauren. So in the original series, there's an episode called Squire of Gothos, where there's an omnipotent man who hijacks the crew of the Enterprise and messes with them. And I was curious if you could talk about like the origins of Q and if that episode had any role in that. If you.
Wow. I'm going to have to turn that over to one of you guys. Do you have that?
Was Trelane inspired? Did
Trelane
Trelane
inspired
inspire Q?
I
Did
think-
Gene
sure you have a lot of
Roddenberry
thoughts
rip
on that.
himself off? Find out next
He-
time on Star Trek.
Well,
Gene Roddenberry certainly was accused of ripping off Trelane in the original
Well, we have
series.
Gene here. What would he
Accused.
say?
Huge.
You know that Q is a
trial never ends.
Q is a. Please be quiet for a second. Q is a very different character completely from Trelane. They may be related somehow in the past.
It's really good.
In the past strings of drama in the original series, but he's a completely different character altogether. So pay it no mind.
Beautiful. You guys have.
Hi, Jonathan.
Hi.
My name is Justin. I'm a big fan, and I always loved when you would inject your musicality into episodes. My question for you is, other than giving wonderful a cappella renditions of theme songs, what have you been up to musically of late?
I look at my trombone sadly in its stand, and I pick it up occasionally, and my embouchure lip is gone. So I'll pick it up, I'll play a little bit of Summertime, or I'll play a little bit Don't Get Around Much Anymore, 2 of my standards. By the end of it, my lip is shot. I did just, funny you should mention it, I'll plug it right now. I'm looking for ways to produce the excitement around this. I directed a music video for a dear old friend named Denny McCormick, who's a songwriter, singer-songwriter, who also happens to be the accountant at CBS.
That's an interesting hyphenate.
Well, because now he's my age, and his dream has been to get back to his songwriting. So he went to Bluebird in Nashville and did some stuff, and I got Crescenzo Notarali, our cinematographer, who I adore. He and I did this for Denny for free, and then Crescenzo got the backlot at Universal, the Western Street, for free, and then they donated the generators for free, and then he went to Paramount or to Panavision and got the cameras. So we made probably $100,000 or $200,000 video for next to nothing. The crew was paid $200 for the day. Denny was in heaven, and that's what I've been doing musically. It's called My Old Friends, ironically.
I have to say.
Do you know how to distribute a music video?
We'll talk about that afterwards. But let me ask you, because this is very important.
Clearly, he's got your finger out.
I got the finger pointing. No, it's very important because you mentioned plugging things. We have to talk about Purple Stride and pancreatic cancer, the fight against pancreatic cancer.
Right. So each year, I joined a team with Kitty Swink is Armin Shimmerman's wife, who you probably know. She is a 21-year pancreatic cancer survivor, which is astounding because when she was diagnosed, there was a 4% survival rate, as there was when my late brother Daniel Frakes died at 41. There was 4%. Now, Kitty had asked me to join this PanCan, which is an organization, pancan.org. Go out there, sign up, and we march on the 29th of
So you're not
April.
striding as much as walking.
Yeah, we're more we're more walking. So we raise money mostly for research because the problem with pancreatic cancer is that there's no early detector at the moment with blood tests and no early markers. So the survival rate is now 13%. At any rate, we have a Trek team, which is John Billingsley, the great John Billingsley, who lost his mother, Armin and Kitty, myself, and
Juan Carlos Cotto.
J.C. Cotto, the brother of
Manny Cotto,
who wrote Enterprise, who also died of pancreatic cancer and left 4 children. So we are the team. We raise money. Cotto crushed it last year, by the way. He was one of the highest money. And we made in L.A. He's a great guy. Very sweet man.
Did that warrant the finger wag? Are you glad I
No,
did that?
I'm really glad, because this is what I need to plug while I was up here. So go to pancan.org and contribute what you can to our... Go to the Trek team and contribute there. That's what we do.
What's the URL again? The URL.
If I only knew.
Oh, you don't know?
That's the thing that tells you where stuff is
I
on
know
the
what
web.
it is. Pancan.org is as far as I can get for you accurately.
Pancam.org, I think /Team Trek.
Pancan, C-A-N.
Pancan, one word.
Can.
Pancreatic cancer. Yep.
We're going to do a panel just on restaurants one day. Okay, let's really motor through because we're supposed to be done.
I was in Germany on vacation, and I turned on the TV and saw you doing your new episodes of Beyond Belief.
X-Factor!
And
Mr. Dawson!
Was so excited to see you at these new episodes. And I was wondering if during all those 6 seasons, if you were able to personally pitch some of those ideas to suss out the truth.
Well, I'll tell you the truth. I didn't see the episodes. They were kept from me. I did the wraparounds, and I not only didn't know which were fact and which were fiction, Al Schwartz, who is my director, and Barry Edelman, who wrote what we call the Edelmans, those puns and all those great lead-ins, we would go to Vancouver and shoot 6 episodes of wraparounds. And Al said, I'm never going to tell you, Frakes, what are fact and what are fiction, because something in your voice or some inflection or something you do physically, I'll have a tell. Yeah. And I thought that was a very smart directing choice.
That's a great note.
Yeah, and it really worked. So I got nothing there. But I'm very glad. It's massive in Germany and Switzerland and Austria for some weird reason.
It's a prevarication. We made it up.
Nope, not this time.
Well, we got time for one more question. I'm so sorry. But Jonathan's going to be at his booth, so if you don't catch him now, you can go down, get an autograph, and
ask your question.
And ask good questions. Because these were good questions.
Yeah.
Hi. Thank you for the person ahead of me for letting me go.
Thank you.
So I just had a quick question. You mentioned the sets, the various sets for each of the shows that you've been on and how the budget has grown higher.
And the sets have grown higher, literally.
Yeah. So I had a question as far as what bridge set is your favorite set?
I'm an Enterprise D, the fat one. When we walked back onto Enterprise D in Picard season 3, and the characters came out of the turbolift and looked, and you could feel their emotional reaction. I had been directing the weeks prior, so I watched the set being built, and it was and I actually did an episode of Will Wheaton's thing, where he came down and we walked around on it, and it was very emotional for him as well. But the first day, the whole cast was called to the set to rehearse our first scenes on that bridge. I was riding with Marina and LeVar, and I suspected wisely that there would be something. So I got out of the car first, and I went into the soundstage, because it was on a different soundstage than any of the other Picard sets. And I looked back, and I watched the two of them come through the door, and their breath was, because the set was lit, and it was the only set on the soundstage, so it was very dramatic, and it was there in front of them, and they both were pushed back emotionally, and you could see the tears in both of their eyes, and then it was so real. It was sort of the Malcolm Gladwell. We had been on that set for 10,000 hours probably. So we felt it with our feet, and we felt it with our hearts, and Dave Blass, the production designer, Liz Kozlowski, had done incredible work in remaking it with the same fabric and the same angles for the ramp, and the horseshoe, Worf's horseshoe, the chairs were the same, the feel was the same, everything about it was identical, all the accoutrograms. So it was an emotional as it was meant to be for y'all, it was for us.
You can see it in the show.
You can see it in the show, yeah, very true.
Thank you.
And we're going to let this guy ask his question since he let
Because
you
he
go
was such a
first.
gentleman.
And we got to
Mitch.
reward class these days since there's not a lot of it.
And he's got Worf and Picard on his chest.
Mr. Frakes, I didn't really have a question. I just wanted to say thank you for being Star Trek's #1 and our favorite director. Your work is so incredible, and we love you very much, and you've made a real difference in our lives. So thank you very much, sir.
Thank you. Is that it?
The mayor of Star Trek.
Welcome back. I think the thing with Frakes that's always the most disappointing is that we don't have more time with him at these things.
Yeah.
We could have gone another hour or two. I mean, just talking about his career. So many funny stories.
Most about that guy is, normally to kind of let people know what happens behind stage, we show up a few minutes early. We've got stuff that we queue up. We wait for the guests to arrive. We shake hands. We say hello. We do all of that glad-handing bullshit. We tell them how things are going to work. We go out on stage. Mark introduces us. It's a well-oiled machine-ish.
Yeah, then you bring out the guest.
Yeah, bring out the guest. And Jonathan walks in. He sees us. He's got a bag. He waves. Gentlemen.
He waves and he walks
and he just
right
goes
on stage.
Right on up.
I'm so glad you mentioned that because it's so funny. I had a couple of clips. I had one from Justice of him on the Edo planet. I pulled specifically some stuff that would have been really fun to talk about, right? And it was like everything was queued up. And he comes running in, runs up on stage and starts singing. And it was like, and then we have to decide, when should we go up? Do we go up? Do we just hang out backstage? Do we go to the audience and watch? And it was funny. So he did his thing, and then we came and joined him. But at least we were on time this time.
That's right. He's a delight, and we didn't break any furniture.
That's right. We didn't break any furniture either. But it was a great panel. It was super well attended, which was very nice to see. And we had a couple of friends in the audience who just
And this was on a Sunday morning too.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. All those people who weren't in church came to see Jonathan, the Church of Star Trek.
That's right.
Yeah. No, it's great. And he
the Jesus of Star Trek.
What I love about Frakes is that there's always new stories with him. Like, he would tell stories that we hadn't heard before.
Yeah.
Which is great. And it's just so interesting because he has his acting stories, he has his directing stories, And of course, he has, the many other films and TV shows that he's directed in his career. And then his whole career before he got Star Trek, which is so interesting. The North and South and all the other stuff that he did.
Meeting Jeannie.
Paper Dolls and Meeting Jeannie.
I Dream of Jeannie.
Dun, 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 it's spelled differently. Dun, 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 dun. Does everybody know what a huge I Dream of Jeannie fan Darren is?
Yes.
I think they do.
I do.
I don't think our listeners do.
So, I got to ask you, and then we're going to go.
Yeah.
So, obviously, everyone knows that we're huge Star Trek fans. What's your big thing? If Star Trek was suddenly wiped from existence, what's the other thing that's Star Trek level? What would the podcast be for you?
People watching on YouTube right now can see what shirt I'm wearing.
Oh, yeah.
The 66 Batman.
Mm-hmm.
That is my number 2 love.
Yeah. Yeah, your number 2 love. But Julie Newmar crosses the streams.
Yeah, she does.
Well, if you pay her enough.
Hey.
What?
Okay, what about you, Ashley? What's if it wasn't Star Trek, if Star Trek ceased to exist?
Saved by the Bell.
Saved by the Bell.
Look, I'm a dyed-in-the-wool Batman fan. I'm not a 66 guy.
It's a later one.
I'm just not a 66 guy.
You're an 89 guy.
But it's not even just 89. It's just generally Batman. I can talk about Batman all day long. Maybe also a little bit James Bond, but primarily Batman.
Hey, this is Mark Altman, and welcome to Inglorious Batspurts, where we talk about
Wow, that
Dark
doesn't sound
Knight.
good. That does not sound like a great podcast.
Maybe it's a Little League show.
Could be.
I don't know.
The Batsman. Batter up.
Batsman.
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 Oh, that's very sexist.
It is.
Bats people.
Maybe it should just be called the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen.
Yeah.
Gentle Batman.
Okay. Gentleman Ghost.
Batman.
I want to see him in a movie, Gentleman Ghost.
We can do the podcast live from the cave.
Live from the Batcave?
No, you don't say Batcave.
Viewer mail.
It's copyrighted.
Live from the shark. From the shark repellent.
Some days you just
that was one of the great
rid
birthday
of a bomb.
presents. Darren gave me a bat shark repellent for my birthday one year.
Nice.
Didn't work, but it was because I lost the leg. But it was really awesome.
Have you been attacked by sharks since then? No.
No, I haven't actually. Come to think of it, I haven't. So maybe it does work. Yeah. Okay. Well, this was a great episode. We're so grateful to all our friends at GalaxyCon, Mike Broder and Nick Unthank and the entire team over there that just makes it so easy for us. And what a wonderful weekend at the show. And we're looking forward to many more coming up.
They set a good table.
They set a good table.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah, but the Gorn don't show up. Well, sometimes they do, actually.
Sometimes they do. For $50.
Yeah, next week I have some. I got a story about that. Anyway, if you're a horror fan, you don't want to miss Nightmare Weekend in Chicago, May 1st to the 4th. Nightmare Weekend coming up in Chicago. That's from the fine folks at GalaxyCon. It's going to be another great horror show. It's their inaugural show in Chicago, so definitely show up and support them. You won't be disappointed.
But not a horror show like A Clockwork Orange.
Although it might be.
Yeah, it could be.
You go and they do the
Ludwig
Ludovico
van.
technique on you. It's
Yeah.
like you pay for that. It's great. Inglorious Treksperts is a production of the Treksperts Podcast Network. Mark A. Altman, Darren Dochterman, Ashley Miller, executive producers, Pete Holmstrom, Brian Mixer, producers. Mark Rivera is our incredible sound mixer. John Carney is our social media manager. Inglorious Treksperts is copyright 2025 by Treksperts Plus and is available wherever you listen to podcasts and on video via Spotify and YouTube. You can review Inglorious Treksperts wherever you listen. And share your thoughts with us on your favorite social media platforms or via email at trekspertsplus.com, at Gmail, trekspertsplus@gmail.com, or on the Inglorious Treksperts Discord channel. If you want to find your way to the Discord channel, you know where to look. The show notes. Other Treksperts podcast networks are available on the Treksperts Podcast Network. So don't miss a single episode of all our great shows. And we'll see you next Thursday. Until then, keep on trekking. Or bat spurting.
Wow.
Ingloriously, of course. Na 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 na. No? Okay.